At this time, we want to turn to and recognize our colleague from the great state of New York, from Brooklyn, New York, our colleague Hakeem Jeffries.
I thank the distinguished gentlelady for yielding, and I also thank, of course, my good friend and colleague, Congressman Don Payne, from across the Hudson River, who does such a tremendous job of representing the people of Newark and Essex County. It's been an honor and a privilege to watch my two colleagues during this year preside over the CBC Special Order Hour, giving us, as a caucus, an opportunity to share with the American people some of our thoughts and ideas and the issues that we're working on to improve the lot of those that we represent in the African-American community and all across this great, gorgeous mosaic in the United States of America. I'm troubled, of course, by the events of the last few days as it relates to the Laquan McDonald case out of Robin Kelly's hometown in Chicago. About a year ago, many of us from the Congressional Black Caucus were on this very House floor talking about the failure to indict in the killing of Michael Brown, and the same week, 3 days later, the failure to indict in the strangulation of Eric Garner, who, of course, was put into an unauthorized chokehold and killed as a result of allegedly selling loose cigarettes. It, of course, highlighted the problem of African-American men being killed at the hands of police officers, which is a decade-old problem that hopefully here in America we'll find the courage one day to confront. And now, of course, we're compelled to come to the House floor to deal with the tragedy of the Laquan McDonald case. 17-year-old shot 16 times in 15 seconds by an officer who had 20 prior civilian complaints filed against him. I'm no mathematician, but those numbers simply do not add up. The tape comes out, and we see what occurred. An individual, Laquan, who was walking away from the officers, not toward the officers. And there's no reasonable circumstance, I believe, that led to that individual being shot down like a dog on the streets of Chicago. The officer has now been indicted 13 months later, and hopefully the justice system will run its course and the officer will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But I'm here today to talk about, briefly, another troubling issue that relates to this problem of the police use of excessive force. And that's not just the bad apples who engage in this behavior. It's the fact that far too often the police officers in the department who may not otherwise engage in excessive force, but who have grown up in a culture of a blue wall of silence, who support these officers either with their inaction or in some instances by actively participating in a cover-up. Now, I know that's hard for a lot of Americans to hear because, listen, I also believe the overwhelming majority of officers are hardworking individuals who are there to protect and serve. And I don't take lightly the fact that I'm here concerned on the House floor that far too many officers stand by, tolerate, enable the excessive use of force, sometimes resulting in American citizens being killed without justification. But this case actually highlights the problem. So Laquan gets killed, and if you look at the reports in the immediate aftermath of his death last October, and I just pulled a few, here's what we were told. The suspect fled and officers gave chase, police said. When the officers confronted him near 41st Street and Pulaski Road, he refused their orders to drop the knife and began walking toward the officers, police said. Pat Camden, spokesman for the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, said the teen had a crazed look about him as he approached the officers with the knife. That was reported by CBS. Let's go to NBC. Responding officers found a 17-year-old boy with a, quote, strange gaze about him, who was carrying a knife and wouldn't drop it when police ordered him to do so, Fraternal Order of Police spokesman Pat Camden said. Other officers used a squad car to try and box the boy in against a fence near West 41st Street and South Pulaski Road. An officer shot him in the chest when the teen didn't drop the knife and continued to walk toward the officers, police said. WGN-TV, Chicago police officers shot and killed a 17-year-old after a foot chase near 41st and Pulaski. Officers shot the teen after he waved the knife at them. In the interest of time, let me just read one more. Officers got out of the car. This is the Chicago Tribune. Officers got out of the car and began approaching McDonald, again telling him to drop the knife. The boy allegedly lunged at the officers, and one of them opened fire. When police tell you to drop a weapon, all you have to do is drop it. I mean, Shakespeare would be proud at the fiction that was put out there to justify the murder of this 17-year-old. But here's what's worse. It's now been reported that in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, 4 or 5 officers went to a nearby Burger King and asked to view the surveillance tape. The manager at Burger King gives them the password to the video. They spent a couple of hours in Burger King. I mean, a couple of hours in Burger King, allegedly. And then they leave. And then internal affairs officers apparently come in the days afterward, and they pull the tape. And guess what? 86 minutes are missing. It happens to be the 86 minutes that cover the period of time when Laquan was killed. And so when we come to the House floor and people across the country say Black Lives Matter and they're concerned about the lack of justice in the system, understand, it's not just the excessive use of force. It's the fact that far too many officers, law enforcement folks, participate actively in covering up what has occurred. And until we deal with that cancer of the blue wall of silence, we're going to continue to have to come to this House floor. You're going to continue to see individuals be killed as a result of the use of excessive force. It's an American problem that we should confront, and we should confront it boldly and directly and without hesitation if we really want to uplift the best values of our great democracy. I thank Congresswoman Kelly, I thank Congressman Payne for their tremendous leadership, and I yield back.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the gentleman for his profound remarks on this occasion. I had my own remarks in reference to what happened to this youngster, and that's what he was, a youngster, a child. I have 17-year-old triplets, and so God forbid that my children find themselves in that predicament. So I will not even try to match the remarks by the gentleman from New York. I think he stated the case clearly. Black Lives Matter. And I know there is a segment in this country that gets upset when they hear that. But you need to understand what they're saying. It's why is there no worth to African American lives? That's what they're asking. Why is it so easy that we continually find people of color on the wrong end of these weapons, and then to have it covered up in the manner in which the gentleman from New York stated? 86 minutes. Now, my children love Burger King, but you only need 20 minutes if there's a line in Burger King to do what you need to do. But they spent hours there getting their story right, making sure everybody would corroborate what they were going to say. That's why Black Lives Matter exists. That's why we continue to bring these issues up. That's why we will not let it go quietly into the night. Everybody has seen that videotape. When did he lunge? When was he shot once in the chest? When did any of those things that were reported occur in that video? He was walking away. He did still have the knife in his hand, but he was walking away. And most of the shots that were put into his body were after he was on the ground, and the officer feared for his life. Black lives matter. And I will yield to the gentlelady from Houston, Texas, the Honorable, wonderful, dynamic, one of my sheroes, the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee.
I thank the gentleman from New Jersey and the gentlelady from Illinois, but I want to specifically say Chicago, and I join my colleagues. I think this is, again, an important statement of the value of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I'm glad our tone is such that we are compassionate, we have emotion, but we are detailed. And so I know with the remaining time, let me try to be concise on the value of the Congressional Black Caucus in American history, its place in this Congress, to be the provocative orators and articulators of the conscience of this nation. Let me first of all say that I have been privileged, but certainly I have mourned May 15th, when all of us have paid attention to fallen law enforcement officers who are honored here in the United States Capitol. Any number of us have gone to the grounds and we have hugged those from our district. We have honored families and we have recognized the pain. I think many of you recall that there was an assassination of sorts of a deputy sheriff in Houston, a number of unfortunate assassinations or shootings of police in New York, and I saw the nation mourn. I think it's important to say this because often when we say Black Lives Matter, it seems conflicted. People raise the issues that African Americans or the nation seems to be hesitant about law enforcement officers, and that is not true. I want to thank the Congressional Black Caucus and Chairman Butterfield because we started out this year with a criminal justice agenda. And I just want to quickly go down memory lane or reflection very quickly to say that it was the leadership and the combined members who raised a number of issues that have brought us to the point that we've actually passed in the Senate and in the House Judiciary Committee criminal justice sentencing legislation. We're not where we need to be. And that Sentence Reform Act will reduce mass incarceration by 11,500 who are currently incarcerated, and it will give retroactive relief. An additional 4,000 will benefit each year Combined with that, it'll be 50,000 people over 10 years. We're beginning to look at the criminal justice system in a way that speaks to the whole idea of black and minorities, Hispanics, and others being the fodder for the criminal justice system. In my district in Houston, Texas, black and Hispanic youth make up over 75% of the male population aged to 10 to 24 years, but they make up black and Hispanic youth account for 85% of youth admitted in our detention centers. So we are working on the reduction of sentencing, and I think with the help of this bipartisan legislation initiated and brought to the attention of this Congress by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, working with other members of this body, both Republicans and Democrats, we have legislation that should pass. But as we all know, that we have been mystified and mourning this tape that I know that Congresswoman Kelly in her hometown has been a champion for justice, along with her fellow colleagues of the Congressional Black Caucus, Bobby Rush and Danny Davis. They've been front and center on these issues. And so we must continue the journey dealing with the juvenile justice, and might I say that I hope we will come around the issues of the RAISE Act, the Fair Chance Act, and Caleb's Law, ending solitary confinement for young people in the juvenile justice system, banning the arrest record, and of course, giving alternative sentencing to these young people. But I want to quickly get back to this horrific shooting, because what Black Lives Matter speaks to is coming together around an improved law enforcement system. And that's why I came to the floor today, to be able to say, unless we move forward on legislation that deals with best practices in our police departments, and we are going to continue the tension that should not exist. There is no explanation or no answer to the video that has been shown. I wonder what the sentencing or the reaction or the ultimate results would have been if there was a video of Darren Wilson and Michael Brown. There was not, because I still believe that Michael Brown, an unarmed youth, should not have been, his actor, who happened to be a law enforcement person, should not have gone unpunished. In this instance, we see a video that was completely mischaracterized, or in essence, the story was characterized in a complete contrary to the video that was shown. So what is the answer? Law enforcement officers that I work with all the time will indicate that they're bad apples, and they are right. Then work with us to pass the Law Enforcement Integrity and Trust Act, which provides the roadmap and the incentive for all of these departments to be accredited and to have officers go through the specific training that documents how you address the question of the street. It includes video cameras. It includes community-oriented policing. It includes grants to incentivize better training and better training practices. For we must find an answer in this term of Congress. We should not end this Congress without a complete and reformed criminal justice system, including dealing with law enforcement, which is clearly what the Congressional Black Caucus has been working on. So I am hoping that we can find this common ground, because there is no explanation that is reasonable or rational of the actions of the officer in Chicago. There is no reasonable explanation to the officer in the Sandra Bland case. And ladies and gentlemen, you remember this young woman dying in a jail. They have yet to come up with an indictment or a response. They have yet to have an answer of the jail that standards were an embarrassment in Waller County. The district attorney has yet to come forward in the Sandra Bland case. The family has not been notified. The lawyer doesn't know what's going on. And we met with those individuals not to direct them, but to ensure that they were going to respect this death. Nothing has happened about the stop that we saw in the video. Nothing has happened about the jail incarceration. So I simply have come to the floor to indicate to my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, to work with us on a number of issues that those in the Congressional Black Caucus reach out in the spirit of bipartisanship, dealing with, as I close, the voting rights reauthorization in Section 5, providing opportunities for historically black colleges. We have been at the leadership realm of that. Making sure that the criminal justice system, as I've said, addresses the over-incarceration of our youth, deals with the question of policing, for the Black Lives Matter speaks to it eloquently, and we should not be condemned for the massive protests of 10,000 people down this wonderful Michigan Avenue. As there they go again, we have got to find a place at the table to be able to reorientate, if you will, how we do policing in America. So I would ask my colleagues that we move swiftly in this term, in this Congress, to be able to address this. Let me finish on this one last point. The violence of guns are outrageous. And I want to speak very quietly about the Planned Parenthood incident because I don't want to provoke. But I believe it's important to note, we always say, for those who do not want to hear us talking about gun safety, closing the gun show loophole, banning assault weapons, which the individual had, however it plays out, the individual may be determined to have a mental health concern or condition, but he had an automatic rifle of some sort, and unfortunately, we lost several persons in the course of the incident, although the investigation is still going. It also happens in black-on-black crime. But my friends, our community doesn't ignore that. But what we say, guns are involved in most of these deaths. And not only that, not only are guns involved, but we must understand that when a gun is used by an officer, it is distinctive from black-on-black crime because it's under color of law. The Congressional Black Caucus comes to the table to ensure that these very sensitive issues are handled with the greatest delicacy, but with the greatest commitment and passion, that we want to stop the killing and stop the deaths and have the decency to reflect on a parent like Mr. Payne, a parent like Ms. Kelly, a parent as myself. Black Lives Matter, our children matter. The Congressional Black Caucus wants to work to ensure we have the answers that the American people have asked us for and that they deserve. I yield back.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Thank you.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.